Hello, school nutrition team, and welcome to our school year 2020 to 2021 Unique Mealtime Needs or UMN training. This training is going to cover the basics of what you need to know for the upcoming year as it relates to unique mealtime needs or what we call UMN. Please note that due to changes related to COVID-19, that some of these items discussed in training may change as the year progresses. So, what are we going to discuss today? I'm glad you asked. What we are going to talk about today will cover three main areas. 1, UMN basics, 2, allergen basics, and 3, mealtime considerations. First, we're going to dive into UMN basics. So when we say unique mealtime need or UMN, we are referring to a modification or accommodation a student needs in order to eat or drink safely or receive adequate caloric intake at school. When we look at what a UMN can be, it can be adaptive equipment, modified textured food or thickened liquids, a tube feeding, or meal modifications that accommodate for a food allergy or an intolerance. Our school nutrition team is primarily responsible for preparing modified textured foods and for making substitutions to a student's meal to accommodate for food allergies and intolerances. We, as Pitt County schools, and most schools, are required by federal regulations to accommodate any student with a disability that restricts their diet that has a medical statement on file. We also may call a medical statement a diet order. When we say the word disabilities, it can refer to a temporary or a permanent impairment of a major life activity. A major life activity can include, but is not limited to, breathing, swallowing, digestion, or walking. And also keep in mind that a physical or mental impairment does not need to be considered life-threatening to be counted as a disability. So when we look at who plays a role in UMN accommodation, there are quite a few people that are involved in some way, shape, or form, either directly or indirectly. The ones highlighted in the greenish color, student/parent, teacher/teacher assistant, school nurse, and school nutrition team, are the ones we're going to discuss a little bit further. So when we look at examples of responsibilities, keep in mind that these responsibilities listed are not a full list, but they are some of the more key important responsibilities you should be aware of going into the new school year. So when it comes to student parents, they are responsible for communicating new or updated UMN using the approved medical statement. They need to ensure that the student is aware of foods that are unsafe and only eats foods that are safe. And it also is important to ensure that the student knows how to ask if a food is safe and how to communicate if they may be having an allergic reaction. So this may be easier for older versus younger students, but again, there should be some age-appropriate strategies in place to help students navigate their unique mealtime needs as well. When we look at responsibilities for teachers and teaching assistants, they help us make sure that students only eat food that is safe when they're eating in the classroom or have various activities or even field trips. They also play a role in the classroom with avoiding cross contact, which we will discuss later, by wiping down eating surfaces before and after eating. School nurses play a role in managing unique mealtime needs by making sure that staff who cares for the students are prepared and trained, and they also oversee planning and supervision of daily care needs with students with unique mealtime needs. When we look at our responsibilities as a school nutrition team as a whole, these responsibilities fall into 5 main areas. Number 1 is participating in our school's UMN management, and this can be done in a variety of different ways. Number 2 is to prepare for and respond to UMN. This means becoming familiar with students' medical statements or diet orders, and also being able to identify students with unique mealtime needs during mealtime. This is most often done at our point of sale or register. This can also be done if classroom rosters are used that have allergens noted or mealtime needs noted with the student's name. Number 3, we also are responsible for helping with daily management of unique mealtime needs. So this can include following medical statements, making appropriate mealtime substitutions, and following department policies and procedures. The fourth area in which our team is responsible is related to participating in professional development on UMN and food allergies. Examples include this training right here, and also additional training as assigned or needed if incidents arise at your school site. And the fifth area of our responsibility as a school nutrition team is related to creating and maintaining a healthy and safe school environment. So that ensures that we do our role as a team to make sure we are in compliance with the students' UMN, that we are following policies and procedures to prevent cross-contamination during preparation of meal service, and then as appropriate, although may not be happening this year, planning ahead to make sure safe meals are available for field trips or other school events. The second area that we are going to cover are allergen basics. So let's dive in and learn a little bit more about allergens. A food allergen is defined as a product or ingredient containing certain proteins that could potentially cause severe or fatal reactions in a food allergic person. Allergen proteins are naturally occurring and they generally cannot be eliminated by cooking or by baking. All food allergens are proteins, but not all proteins are allergens. A food allergy occurs when the body has a specific and reproducible exaggerated immune response to certain foods. While most reactions are mild or moderate, some can be severe or even fatal. So when we refer to the Big 8, we refer to the 8 foods containing the proteins that cause 90% of the food allergic reactions according to the Food and Drug Administration. These items are milk, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, fish, shellfish, soy, and wheat. One important thing to note about the Big 8 is that these are the only food allergens that are tracked through our entire food processing system. So this means that when we read a label that says it does not contain one of the Big 8 allergens, it is a guarantee that the product does not contain these allergens. This is why we are unable to completely guarantee students with other non-Big 8 allergens are receiving a meal free of an allergen. A few things to also keep in mind when we're talking about allergens is that an allergy is not the same as an intolerance. Many people have food intolerances, such as lactose intolerance. This usually refers to symptoms or reactions such as heartburn, cramps, belly pain, or diarrhea after someone eats certain foods. Keep in mind that an allergy is actually related to a response from the immune system, and the immune system, when this happens, releases substances that cause the primary symptoms of food allergies, which we will discuss in the next slide. Food allergies overall are a growing health concern. According to FAIR, Food Allergy Research and Education Network, 1 in every 25 adults and 1 in every 13 children in the U.S. suffers from food allergies. And as you can see here, the cost related to food allergies is nearly $25 billion, with a B, a year for children. And 16 to 18% of children with a food allergy have experienced an allergic reaction at school. So as I previously said, food allergens cause the immune system to respond in ways that could just be mildly uncomfortable to life-threatening. This happens because the body mistakes the allergen protein as a harmful substance, so it causes it to overreact. And keep in mind again that there are currently no medications to cure food allergies. Most people experience what we call non-anaphylactic symptoms, which are usually not severe. But as you can see from this list, these symptoms can affect different body systems, and symptoms can include watery eyes or swollen lips, pale skin, or even irritability and change in mood. When we refer to anaphylaxis, we are referring to a rare but potentially fatal condition in which several different body parts experience allergic reactions at the same time. Symptoms will usually appear rapidly and sometimes within minutes of exposure to an allergen and can be life-threatening. Keep in mind this could be if someone eats something, inhales something, or even touches something that has an allergen on it. Some of the common symptoms related to anaphylaxis include itching, hives, swelling of the throat, difficulty breathing, low blood pressure, and irritability, change in mood, or confusion. Immediate medical attention is necessary when anaphylaxis occurs. A common treatment includes injecting epinephrine or adrenaline into the body so it can help to open up airways and blood vessels. All school nutrition employees are expected to do the following when it relates to allergen management: know how to read labels, avoid cross-contact of foods, respond to information requests honestly, and seek additional information when needed. Let's dive into these a little bit further. When it comes to reading labels, there are 3 key points. Number 1, look for contain statements. With a contain statement, it means that the product has the actual allergen in it. Number 2, look for what are called may contain statements. That means that a product may have been exposed to an allergen while it was being manufactured. For example, you may see a statement on a product that says processed in a facility that also processes soy. So while the product may not directly have soy in it, it may have been exposed to it, and for someone with a severe soy allergy, this could be potentially dangerous. Number 3, you also want to be mindful of hidden sources of an allergen, such as a food additive or a food preservative. And again, if you have a question, reach out. Your manager and/or supervisor will be able to help you. An important concept for us to discuss is cross-contact. So cross-contact occurs when an allergen is inadvertently transferred from a food containing an allergen to a food that does not contain the allergen. It happens when one food comes into contact with another food and their proteins mix. As a result, each food then contains small amounts of the other food. These amounts are often so small that they usually cannot be seen. But even this small amount of food protein has been known to cause reactions in people with food allergies. There are 2 types of cross-contact. The first is direct cross-contact, and this is when an allergen was directly applied and then removed. An example of this is scraping peanut butter off of a piece of bread and using it to make another sandwich, such as a turkey and cheese sandwich. The second type of cross-contact is indirect cross-contact, and this occurs when the allergen was not directly applied. An example includes wiping off but not properly cleaning a knife used to spread peanut butter before using it to spread jelly. There are several ways that you are expected to avoid cross-contact. Let's review them. You want to make sure that you're using utensils, cutting boards, and pans that have been thoroughly washed with soap and water. You also want to make sure if you're preparing several foods that you cook the allergy-safe foods first. This basically means we want to prepare any foods that have no allergies or minimal food allergies before those that have multiple food allergens. You want to make sure that you keep your food safe and covered and away from other foods that may splatter. If you make a mistake, remember that you cannot just remove an allergen from a meal, and that even a small amount of cross-contact makes food unsafe for our students. Make sure that you're washing your hands with soap and water before touching anything else if you have handled a food allergen. Soap and water will remove a food allergen, but sanitizing gels or water alone are not effective. You also want to make sure that you scrub down counters and tables with soap and water after making meals. Effective cleaning basically is the act of removing food proteins from surfaces. So this means we'll need to ensure that surfaces are washed with soap and water. Simply wiping the crumbs from spatulas, cookie sheets, cutting boards, or other surfaces is not enough. This has been studied, and it's shown that conventional cleaning methods are effective in removing the protein of a food allergen. So keep in mind that soap and commercial wipes are effective for removing protein from your hands. And again, alcohol-based sanitizer is not. When it comes to responding to information requests, the number one rule to keep in mind is to never guess about the content of a food. It is best to give someone a food that you know is safe, or ask your manager or supervisor if you have a question. If you do need to ask about a food, make sure you communicate to the person asking about the food that you're trying to get them an answer. We have several pieces of information at your fingertips on a daily basis to help you figure out if a food has an allergen or not. These include recipes, product labels, production records, allergy Google Docs, including the master roster and our Big 8 allergen list, and also you can find this information at the point of sale or register. The last area we are going to cover will be mealtime considerations. This school year, we will be labeling meals for students with unique mealtime needs. Please note that how this will look exactly at your school is going to be based on your school's specific meal service plan. Your supervisor or manager will be able to share this information with you for your school as the school year starts. We will be using two colors for meal labeling. A pink label will note that a meal is free from allergens. So the staff that is responsible for preparing these meals will circle which allergens the student has. For example, if you are preparing a meal for a student with a soy and egg allergy, you will circle soy and egg on the label. A meal with a green label will note that that meal has modified textured food. The staff responsible for preparing these meals will circle which texture the food is. So, for example, if a student has an order for puree food, you will circle puree on the green label. There are 3 food textures that a student may have. Food textures are modified in order to ensure that a student can safely chew and or swallow their meals. Keep in mind that all foods must be the same texture unless otherwise noted in a student's diet order. The first texture that we're going to talk about briefly are pureed textured foods. So as you can see from the pictures here, the foods must be smooth and cannot have any water separation. So we want to make sure that there are no chunks or lumps or anything along those lines that could possibly cause the student to choke or not be able to properly chew their food. The second texture that we are going to discuss is mechanical soft. Pieces of food are 1/4 of an inch or smaller, as you see in the pictures here. To help with safe chewing and or swallowing, these foods should also be moist with no water separation. The third food texture is chopped/ground. Food pieces should be 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch in size, as you see in the picture. The food should be soft and can also vary in viscosity or thickness due to the water content. It is important to note that, just like regular textured foods, we need to do our part to serve modified food textures safely. Here are some things to keep in mind. Number 1, foods must be at the correct temperature before processing them and should be processed within an hour of being delivered, picked up, or served. Number 2, hot food should be held at 135 degrees or higher, and cold food should be 41 degrees or lower. Number 3, if a meal is being eaten in the classroom, we need to make sure that the meal is properly labeled. This includes listing the time that the item was removed from holding and the time to discard the item, which is 2 hours after being removed from holding. The last and fourth point is that all food that is not consumed within 2 hours of being picked up from the cafeteria should be discarded. As we are transitioning to a different style of service this year, you may be approached with more questions than past school years. The best option when you're approached with a question is to start by speaking with your manager. If necessary, your manager will speak with your supervisor or the school nurse. So last but not least, thank you for your time and thank you for all you do for the students of Pitt County Schools every single day. We know that this school year is different than past years, but know that we are in this together. If you have any questions after reviewing this presentation, feel free to reach out to your manager or supervisor.